Hey there, Otaku. Ken Chan back with another episode of Go Mega Otaku Gamer Alpha. And today we're looking at something. We're going to look at, first, I want to bring up, I have this old issue of Electronic Gaming Monthly. It's February 1993 issue. So I'm browsing through the pages of this magazine, and I come across, there's always like a commentary at the beginning by the editor. In a lot of these magazines, and there's an open letter to, it's like an open letter to whoever buys the magazine, and it's from Ed Samrad, who is the editor at the time of EGM, and he's talking about a new system coming to the market, and he had the privilege last month, which would have been January 1993, of getting a look at the super secret CD-ROM only game machine called the 3DO. It is perhaps the most technologically advanced game system ever created. That is, if you can even call it a game system, it goes way beyond existing and proposed video game technology. And it is an example of the type of system we will be playing games on in the future. The best news is that it's projected to be in the stores as early as the fall. There is only one catch. Like any new state-of-the-art technology, it will not be cheap. In my interview with President and CEO of the 3DO, Trip Hawkins, he stated that this system will retail for about $700. Wow. So, what do you think we're going to talk about today? That's right, we're going to talk about the 3DO. That's right, the article in that issue of Electronic Gaming Monthly says 3DO demos $700 CD-ROM system for EGM. Goes on to talk about the specs. Yep, the processor's a 32-bit RISC CPU, 25 megahertz clock speed, 16 megabit system memory, 16 million color palette, 64 times faster than 16-bit systems when it comes to animation. Data compression is 6-speed, 2-speed, or double-speed CD-ROM. Technologically advanced? Well, let's take a look. This right here is just one of the 3DOs that were made. This one was made by Panasonic. This is a real 3DO interactive multiplayer. It's a top loader. Okay, and here's the controller. This controller design changed slightly several times, and there was no one company that manufactured a 3DO. It wasn't manufactured by 3DO. The architecture was designed and laid out, but it was licensed out to other electronics companies to make other devices that were basically a 3DO. Earlier versions of the Panasonic 3DO, they had the door that slid out, the tray that slid out on the front. Those, of course, mechanisms like that, of course, always fail more often than something like this because there's more things that can go wrong with them. I personally prefer a top loader if I can get my hands on it. I was lucky enough to get my hands on this. Great. Okay, so what other companies made the 3DO? Well, there was a few. Now, there was a licensing model that the 3DO offered. Okay, and as a result of this, Panasonic actually made 3 different versions. One was made only in Japan. Okay, and that was the Robo 3DO. There was a Gold Star 3DO. Actually, there were 2 of those. But one of those was made only in South Korea. Now, there was also the Sanyo Tri 3DO, and that was in Japan only. And there was the Creative 3DO Blaster, which was a PC, I guess it was a card, an expansion card, with double-speed CD-ROM that allowed you to play 3DO games on your PC. Now, at the end of the day, those proposed magazine specs weren't really what ended up being the specs for the machine. Really what it had was a 32-bit RISC processor that was running at 12.5 megahertz. It was known as the ARM60. It had a math coprocessor, and it did 32 kilobytes of SRAM. It had 16-bit stereo sound, and it was basically a double-speed CD-ROM. Let's look at the console. Okay, this is, as I said, the Panasonic FZ10 Real 3DO Interactive Multiplayer. It is a top loader. It was the first machine in a line of machines that came out after that that made a claim of one sort or another to replace all of your home entertainment. You know, it replaced your PC, it replaced your VCR. You know, it was an all-do-all machine, all-in-one machine, whatever you want to call it. They've been making claims like that ever since. Nowadays, of course, we have like the Xbox 360 and the PS3 that are far, far closer to replacing your entertainment devices than anything before. But the idea was there for a long time to try to do something like that. One controller port. Reason why is because on the controllers themselves, here's another controller port. You could daisy chain them together. I'm not sure how many you could do. You could have, you know, what the limit was to how many you could have of these, but you could have more than one. You know, a two-player game, you just plug another controller into this controller. Some of the older controllers had a volume control right here and a jack that you could plug in stereo headphones for stereo play. I have some of those controllers. I'm not sure where they are right now. So for right now, we're going to go ahead and go with this one. If you look at this, the power switch is right here. This snaps it on and off. Let's look at the back here. Expansion port for something that never got manufactured, most likely. You have your, yellow out, red out, white out, stereo, and your video. Okay, you have S-video, which means you also had to run your stereo outs here for sound. Channel selector, and this one actually has an RF out also. The previous versions of this machine looked more like kind of like the precursor to a DVD player almost. They had that entertainment system console or implement type look that they look like something you wanted to put into your entertainment system with your graphic equalizer and your tape deck and your VCR and that kind of thing. This one looks more like a game system because they went with the cheaper, simpler top loader type design. At the time, really, it was more powerful than the Super Nintendos or the Sega Genesis. But the problem was, because of market saturation from machines like that, something like this, going for $700 just wasn't going to cut it. And it didn't. They had to drop the price. I even remember seeing infomercials about this thing. They had things like interactive encyclopedias, for example, and you could learn stuff with this. Machines are always fun that you can learn things with, I find. But no, the real fun in this was the games, the entertainment. And at the time, it had some really, really creative, really interesting games. Unfortunately, a lot of those genres died by the time even the Sony PlayStation 1 came around. A lot of the games that were available on this that were ported to things like the PlayStation 1, a lot of the earlier games like that, they weren't really that well received. They didn't do that well on the PS1. The PS1 had its own kind of games that really took over the market, and this was kind of like shoved to the side. But it was, for its time, powerful. The games were creative. And speaking of games, let's look at some of the games. Okay, what we're going to look at first is a game called The Deadless Encounter. I won't be playing too much of this game. This is an interactive movie, a genre that kind of died because, graphics got better. They did things like this because they didn't have the graphics capabilities to really do an effective, like full-blown 3D game. But now what you have here, this game is actually 4 discs, and it has Tia Carrera in it. And it's actually quite well done. I've played it through, I've finished it. One thing I will say is it's very heavy on puzzles. There's a little bit of shooting. You really need a walkthrough to get through it, though. I don't see how anybody could possibly get through this thing without a walkthrough. But here's a little bit of this. There she is.
Do you see anything on the scanners?
Never mind. The 5 backup class interceptors coming in hot and heavy, Case. On, Case. All right. Wait, formation, Case. All right, Case, you got one coming up. Wait, right in front of you. Shoot. Got him. Now it's a massive collision at 8, 7, 6.
Audio link is activated. Cutting in visual in 3, 2, 1.
Switch on neural interface.
You got it.
Casey? It's Ari. Hi. Look. Your mind has been placed in a cerebral support mechanism. It's a device that when...
She's trying to say you're a brain in a box, Case.
Zach, could you let me handle this, please? Look, it's kind of hard to explain. Here. I'll let you take a look at yourself. Now, you may not look the same on the outside, but I know it's you on the inside. And we need to know if you can respond. If you can, use the virtual interface in front of you to transmit a yes.
Yeah, see how this works?
Yes! Great, it works.
Case, you probably haven't heard, but the war is over. We flamed their butts at Exeter 3. They have a car, lost a third of their fleet. They went running with their tails between their legs straight to the Taladarans, practically begged them to negotiate a peace treaty. Of course, you know, that put us out of a job. But hey, war's hell, right?
So right now you're aboard the Artemis, finest salvaging vessel in the sector. Zach and I cobbled her together from a couple of surplus Alliance transports.
Not to mention the engines that we sort of borrowed from an Orion-class destroyer. May not look like much from the outside, but she did cut terraform and leg.
Anyway, you see that this has a long intro, and going forward, the game is quite long. It is 4 discs. And let's look at some other games. Little Blade Force for you. This is a little immersionary for you here.
Listen to me. For your own sake, for your children's sake, and the sake of every generation to come, listen to me and behold your future. What you now know as virtual reality will in your future become a virtual Armageddon. Your children's children will become enslaved and forced to fight each other to the death unless you listen and do what I say. I know what must be done, but I am powerless to act on my own. We must have a warrior from your time, someone outside this world we call perfect. Here is the information you need. Analyze this data, and you will see that everything I say is true. You must send us a warrior to destroy perfect. Analyze the data. Everything is in the data.
A little samurai showdown for you here. And of course, other than the Neo Geo version, this was, at the time, the closest version to the arcade that they had. Here's a little Star Blade for you.
Located enemy flagship commander. This is Team Leader. We can run on the velocity of the map line. Over. Enemy fleet has worked towards radar. Pursue and engage radar. Use radar approaches located. Coordinates set at W726. Warning. Warning. Entering enemy's defense line. USR, come in, USR. This is Team Leader. This is Team Leader. Attack the starboard, USR. Over.
Here's a little road rash for you. So there you have it, Trip Hawkins' baby, the 3DO. Sold for $700 originally at retail. I got that one for $60 at a place called the Game Gallery in Easton. Of course, it made the claim that it was going to replace the VCR, it was going to replace the PC. Didn't do either of those things. Nowadays we're looking at, the DVD player ultimately replaced the VCR, and now we have Blu-ray players. And as we move away from discs and into downloadable content, you find that nowadays tablets and smartphones are replacing, the PC more so than any 3DO ever did. But it's a great collectible. They're not as common as something like a PlayStation 1. They're not as powerful as something like a PlayStation 1. But the games are quirky. The games are also peculiar to that system. A lot of them are. A lot of them were the kinds of things that were only done for a very brief period, like the interactive movie, and they were done away with. So for another staple system in your collection, it's the 3DO.